Good afternoon. This is Antonio Womak here, and I'm at the beautiful home of Harry Spyker, someone who I've known for over 40 years. And I'm so honored to have the opportunity to recommend him for the Legacy project. So, Mr. Spyker, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. I'm pumped. I'm anxious. It's great to see you after you've judged me before, and been very nice. And so I've kind of observed your life, and you've observed my life through through the years, and your exploits, going from band director to administrator, and don't know how you survived all that either.
Where today is all about you.
Okay.
So, tell our listeners. Viewers, where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your junior, senior high school that you attended, and how did you get started in music?
Well, I grew up with a experience in Ohio. My dad was a banker in Germantown, Ohio, and he moved us to a great small town outside of Dayton called Fairborn, Ohio, and that was in second half of second grade. And the junior high, the middle school, and the elementary school were all right there together. So I was, from fourth grade on, eighth grade, we were right there together, and a short walk from where I lived. So it was kind of like a walking. Later on, when I went to Fairborn High School, it was like less than a mile away, and I could walk to the high school. So it all worked out because my dad left when I was 8. So I was raised by a single mom, and she wasn't ready for it. And we moved into these GI barracks. One room, mom slept in the living room, and that's where I pretty much lived until my senior year with my mom and sister. So when I was, in Fairborn, I had a great environment. But it's interesting that the town was mostly 100% white. And I'm going to lead this into my future story, but it was interesting that I grew up in town, which, I always say we had a terrible football team. But anyway, I don't mean to be in it. But anyway, it was a great town because they had bus service to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. My mom's 29. She had me when she was 19. Never worked, and now she's got to go find a job. She gets one at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The GI home, these Hebel homes that we lived in, she could catch the bus and go to work. I grew up with no car, and this guy comes into my fourth grade class, Mr. Klein, and he says, "Who'd like to be in the band?" And that changed my life. It was like, epiphany number 1. I didn't know the names of instruments except maybe piano. And he said, "Well, what would you like to play?" I had my hand raised. And I said, "Well, the only instrument I know is a trumpet." So he says, "We'll talk." Now, this guy's retired clarinet player from the Navy band, and he grew up in Fairborn, one high school one. And so he was the band director. He said, "Bring your mom in." So this is an important story because my mom comes in. We're standing on the stairs outside this fourth grade class, and he says, stuff to my mom, and you're going to have to rent an instrument, get a stand, all this, all verbal, no handouts. And he said, "I recommend he plays the clarinet." Now, how he knew, I never got to try any instruments. How he knew, I have no idea, but it was the best direction for me, and it was just a natural. I took to the clarinet like a duck takes to water.
Oh, wow.
And it was like a fill-in for the dad being gone. And I learned how to whistle when I was real young by a kid that I was walking to school with. And the whistling was clarinet.
Perfect.
Perfect. But I learned how to do that. I can't teach anybody else, but I worked on that for months with this kid who already could do it. He's a couple of years older. So sometimes, there's like divine intervention, what was meant to be, because from the clarinet, you got all the woodwinds, and so it just evolved, and I found myself tying into other future questions, pulling kids off the street. Hey, come here. Let me show you how to play this.
So how large was the band program?
Okay, that's the next story. There was no band program until 9th grade high school. Mr. Klein, the only way he had anything going was we met before school. So you had to be there like 7 in the morning, from 7 to 8, and all of us were in the auditorium floor, and I was like lost. For me, just trying to figure out what that big round note was, because there was no real training at first. So I walked up to a kid, tall redhead kid, 8th grader, and I said, "How did you get so good?" And he said, "Private lessons." I said, "What's that?" So he said, "Okay, well, Mr. Klein is a clarinet player, and he'll give you a lesson. You have to pay him." So by this time I had a paper route. I was getting up at 4 in the morning, delivering papers, so I could buy the clarinet, rent the clarinet, buy the bike for all this myself. And this will tie in later to why I teach where I teach, because I'm one of those kids that I teach. I was, single parent, no money, no support. And I just love the music. I also love sports. And that was the direction that I went, with sports and music. They had men coaches. I needed that influence in my life. So I just sort of evolved into music and band directing through all these chain of events through my life.
Were there any awards, like all county, all state, regional, when you were in high school?
When I got to high school, my sophomore year, this kid moved into town, John Cross. He was from Oklahoma, where he had studied from 4th grade through 8th grade. He's a year younger than me, 9th grader, coming into our high school. His parents got a job right at Patterson Air Force Base. And this kid was all over the clarinet, the sax, the piano, the trumpet. He was just amazing. John Cross told me, "Harry, you need to get with Mr. Enoch in Dayton, Ohio." Changed my life. I teach like Mr. Enoch does now. He was a fundamental basics. He developed everything about me. Then I started making all county, all state, all that stuff.
So what's the distance?
Boom.
What's the distance between your high school and Dayton, Ohio?
25 miles. I had to get on a bus Monday after school with my clarinet and my book and go in, get out off the bus station, winter, summer, whatever, snow, ice, go into Rotor Music Store, go down the steps and around into his clinic, his little office where he gave the lesson, studio, I guess. And I studied with him, and within months, because I didn't understand, I just could play. Because Mr. Klein was all about this. Just technique. I was all over it. I had no idea what I was doing. Usually wrong fingerings, So to me, it's so exciting to organize things for kids, to get their basics, foundation. So I love private teaching. I've always produced, I tell my kids, if you want to make all county, study with someone that produces all county players. You want to get a all state level, study with someone that produces all state level. Well, I started in Fairborn, Ohio. When I started teaching, I was teaching professors' kids in college. They were coming to me to teach their kid. But I was into the basics because of Mr. Enoch. But high school was successful because of John Cross. John Cross became a professor out in California system, and Paul Anka, famous performer from the 50s and 60s, picked him up as his band leader. He's been in Vegas ever since.
Well,
You can see him on YouTube. John Cross, Joncross. He changed, and then my band director. There's another story that's interesting to FBA. My band director was Fred J. Miller. Fred J. Miller gave me my first job out of, there's a whole, I'm sort of bleeding things together. But the high school evolved into college, of course. When I got done with college, Mr. Miller let me do my student teaching with him. And he held his assistant band director job open till I finished my student teaching, which was in November of 65, 63, 64, 65, 66, 66.
So tell me about college.
Yeah.
Did you earn a college scholarship? And what college did you attend?
I took up tennis in 8th grade, another Navy guy, and I went to a tournament at Central State University, Wilberforce, Ohio. Great small all-black college. And I played in a tennis tournament there, and Maceo Hill, the coach, was running this tournament mostly to just give his kids something over the summer to get good at. And I'd been playing varsity high school tennis also. And I won a couple rounds, and I beat one of his college players.
As a high school player, right?
As a high school player, his college player. So he comes up to me and he says, I want you to come here. And then he says, what are your interests in music? So I went, I went back and I had an appointment with the music teacher, not knowing what to do, but I brought my clarinet along. And so he said, well, let me hear you play. The band director said, let me hear you play. He says, do you know anything? I said, yeah, I know lots of stuff. See, in Ohio, whenever you did a solo, it had to be memorized. Mm-hmm. It was not for distinction or anything. It was just required. Starting in like 7th grade, I'm playing solos from memory at my little brain, and I'm having success. But that working to memorize and to get it right. So I said, well, I know several solos that I've done through the years. And so I played some Mozart and some Brahms on the clarinet, sonata in E flat and so forth. These are like grade 6 level. And I'm still in high school. And he says, yeah. And then he says to me, I never thought about it. What do you want to major in college? I said, music. It's like, oh, okay. I think I'm just being directed. I'm kind of religious. I believe I was being directed all the time for a reason. I didn't think I'd ever be going to college.
And this is at Central State.
Central State. And tennis, academic, music. I had 4 years full blown. Here you go. Or you could go this other place. Well, my mom couldn't afford to pay the difference. Like Ohio State or, somewhere else. So I said, and it's a small college. I loved it. I spent time there on the campus. I was treated so well. Now, guess when this was? What? 63 is when I went. The height of
civil rights.
Civil rights, yeah. So it was amazing to me that there's a guy and I'm welcomed, and I got such a fabulous education that.
Well, let me pause right here.
Yeah.
Some of our listeners may not realize that Central State is a HBCU, a historically black college and university. So when you applied and to the school, were there many other whites in your classes, and particularly the band?
Not really. The thing with Central State is that it had great classes and courses, but most of the white people commuted. They didn't stay on campus.
Oh, yeah.
I was on the 3rd floor or in the dorms all 3 years. And what an education. Everywhere you go, hey, how you doing? What's up? What's happening? It was just, I was home because it was just like, it changed me.
So I'm just curious. This is not a standard question. Did they do dance routines like FAMU?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
so you was like white light.
You should have seen me out there. You know, we were doing the Philly dog and all kinds, and then when they saw us, the white guy at the dances at the basketball, they'd form two lines like what's that? And then you would dance down through the middle.
Soul Train line.
Yeah, Soul Train line. Yeah, we did the Soul Train line. You know, Temptations, My Girl. My background in jazz and all that came out of that experience. I was in the jazz band, the concert band, the marching band, but they didn't say anything about, you know, that I wasn't quite as good a dancer as.
So let's move forward.
Yeah.
How did you get from Ohio to South Florida, or was there something in the middle?
Okay, well, tied together, Fred Miller gave me my job his last year teaching.
Where at?
Fairborn High School. I mean, I'm walking down the halls at 21 years of age getting asked for hall pass because the teachers just had me, you know, 3 years ago. So the other thing, when I got to Florida, so I got it so I don't forget, and I interviewed, you know, for a job in Ohio. You were the assistant band director first, but you also helped out at the junior high, and you had a couple elementaries you had to do every day. We traveled the 6 years I taught in Ohio. We traveled to all the different schools. So I'll bring that back later. So what was the question again?
How did you transition from Ohio to Florida?
Okay, so I was teaching at Springfield North High School, and I was going summers to Ohio State, 4 summers, to work on my master's. So another guy that was 3 years older than me, he said, "Harry, you need to go to Ohio State. You need to get your master's going now, get it done in your 20s, which I advise everybody to do, and get it out of the way before your life gets complicated." And I got to study with McGinnis and Titus and Burdette Green on sax every summer. And then I resigned from Springfield North High School, and I went full-time to Ohio State. And I was able to finish it in December.
Wow.
In my graduating class, they were giving Jesse Owens an honorary doctorate degree. I'm shaking hands with Jesse Owens, you know, as I go across the stage to get, you know, it's a winner. You know, there's like, I don't know, thousands and thousands of people fill up that arena. But when I got done, it was in the middle of the year, so I did some substitute teaching. I did a lot of playing. I played in symphonies in Ohio for 4 years, Springfield Symphony, taught lessons, played jazz groups, and even in the summers we played Kenley Players in Dayton, Ohio, down the pits. You know, because I could read a, you know, third or fourth reed book, you know, which you had to play at clarinet, sax. One time I had to get out the oboe and the bassoon. So different musicals, all kinds of playing experiences, and
What was your first?
I was approached by Kenny Miller.
Kenny Miller.
Kenny Miller is an actor, singer from the Beach Boy kind of days. He's been in some movies. He lives. He's probably not alive anymore, but he was from Springfield, Ohio. He approached me. Somebody gave him my name, and to put a group together for a movie. So I said, "Oh, okay." Burt Reynolds is his friend, and I said, "Okay, I'll do it. I got time." So I drove every weekend for months to Boston, to Berkeley, and I recruited 4 guys: a guy from Canada, a guy from Mississippi, a guy from Springfield, Ohio, drummer, and trumpet player from New York, and organ player, keyboard. Hammond B3, what a great sound for. Anyway, So he sent us all of his charts. We got together in Springfield and we rehearsed. And Kenny comes in after we got all his charts worked up. We do some fairs. We start traveling around the country, played Playboy Mansions and different places down in Atlanta. Ended up in Fort Lauderdale because we're going to be in this movie with Burt Reynolds. The guy grew up with the guy singer. So we had it tight. So Kenny calls us in, let's see, it was the next October we finally landed. And he calls us in and says, Burt just called and said they changed the script to a chick group. End of dream. So I'm in Dean's Music Store in Deerfield, Florida. And it's a little hole in the wall. And this guy, Doc Corey, had a little music store. And I'm in there looking for some reeds and stuff. And I said, he said, we're striking conversation. And I said, I'm down here. I said, you have any need for, a private teacher or something where I could, make a little money? Because I don't want to go back to Ohio. He says, do you have your degrees? And I said, yeah, I have my degrees. I have a couple of them, they're in a box somewhere at my mother's house. And he says, well, there's a job open right over here at Deerfield Middle in November. Mm-hmm. So years later, Gloria Vaghi, Pioneer Middle, great band director, she said, I looked at that job, I didn't want anything to do with it. So I always like a challenge. And I liked having a job, so I wanted to stay. So I went over and I interviewed for the job, didn't have a tie, my hair was a little bit long from the group and everything. And I was interviewed by the principal and a bunch of parents, Deerfield parents.
This is Deerfield Beach.
Deerfield Beach Middle School. And I got the job probably out of, no, I know, I heard a lot of stories about why it was not good. But there's this guy named Fred Humphreys who kept coming in before school to keep the program going. So then he enters into my life and gets me hooked up with FBA, and it was like, thank goodness, he looked out for me. I could go on and on about all this.
But and then you later transitioned from Deerfield Beach Middle to Deerfield Beach High School.
I did Deerfield Middle for 5 years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and for 5 years, and the first 3 years I was there, I was feeding Fred Humphreys, and then Paul Bourne came in for 2 years, and then Jupiter High School opened up, and he left Deerfield and went up to Jupiter and had a fantastic career up there. But the young directors need to have someone like a Fred Humphreys to hook on to, because that made all the difference. I'm there in November and processing everything, and I'm official. After I get, with a master's, I got my 10-year teaching certificate right away. So I was good for 10 years.
As an FBA Legacy band director, you've been around over a few decades. What are some of the things that you see today that I say different than when you first started, that maybe should be enhanced or improved, or some things that are, how do you compare the two? Are they the same, or are they more different than they are alike?
Well, I think that, first of all, I got to say FBA and the whole system saved me. I mean, one of the questions was, what were challenging you, what was,
Yeah.
But FBA, if someone will just plug into FBA keeps up with the times. They adjust, they vote, they have really smart people that have earned leadership positions that guide us, and then we, of course, have FMEA and so forth that keeps going with the times. You can't not adjust and adapt. And some of the changes have been wonderful to help the band directors. In Ohio, we didn't have a system like that. There was no support. No, if you called the guy, he wouldn't even know what you're talking about. Or the continuity of FBA. What do I need to expect? We have guidelines. We have handbooks. We have everything mapped out, and all you got to do is a touch of a button. Now with technology, I mean, I don't know as that would change anything, because the process is sort of like, you adapt to evolve. You just keep evolving.
From your very first year in Ohio to today, August 2024, how many total years have you been teaching band?
57.
57 years.
57 years.
Dr. Spyker.
I took a year off. To finish my master's and put the group together. And I came back, and because I started in half years, I got credit for the full years. And then 14 years ago in October, I retired at Deerfield Middle, where I went in '94. This will be my 31st year at Deerfield Middle.
You went back to Deerfield Beach?
She hired me back. Mrs. Harris hired me back after 1 month off.
What year are we talking about?
Not Deerfield Middle, sorry. I'm getting old and senile. Congress Middle.
Congress, right.
Yeah, I started Congress in '94, and this will be my 31st year at Congress next year. And I retired for 1 month. My month was October to November. During that month, I went back to school and volunteered to keep the program going until I came back, and then she hired me back. So I've been there still, and now Ms. Harris, and then 2 more principals.
Music has no color. It only has pitch, either in tune or out of tune. But with the students and the demographics, I see so many band directors, they want to go to where the kids are affluent, can receive the private lessons, and with the band parent support. But I followed your career, and I remember when I was at Ely, how you helped me, and I was struggling. I mean, it was my very first year. I didn't even know a bass clef from a treble clef. But my question is this. You tend to gravitate towards the zip codes of the kids who really need the most help, and you don't shy away from that. Even when you was at Boca Raton, the demographics at Boca Raton was shifting. So my question is there some type of attraction to a certain type of caliber of students? I don't mean caliber as far as playing ability or intellect, but needs and desires and abilities.
Well, I was one of those kids that you're talking about that maybe, I hate to use the word minority, it's just not as well off. Not something's off in their upbringing, they don't get the parenting. And I have, wise guy, Mr. Haynes from Fairborn, he said, when you are going to go into teaching, make sure you take a lot of psychology, which I did. My master's and my undergraduate, I always took extra psychology. So, but I relate to the kids because I was one of those kids. And another thing that I did in college, which you know about, you had to sit through the whole story as we drove up to Jacksonville to judge a marching contest together, is I told you the story of where there was a fraternity at Central State University that one of the music majors asked me, would I be interested in joining a fraternity? And of course, my first thing was, what's it cost? Or what's a fraternity? Yeah. But so I studied, what it was about, and watched the goings on and so forth, and he represented a black fraternity, and he said, "Well, here's what it entails and everything," and it was Alpha Phi Alpha, first men first, and I don't know, it all ties together. I like a challenge. One of the questions from one of you was, "What's the character trait of you that has made you so successful?"
Right.
I'm an overachiever. I'm competitive. But I like a challenge. But private lessons with the right guy saved me. He fixed me. So I've become a fixer. I am very good at, I can come into a band and raise them one level that night.
Wait, but finish your story.
But I'm just saying.
Are you a member of Alpha Phi Alpha?
Yes.
Dr. Spyker, you are definitely legendary.
I integrated Central State University, Alpha Phi Alpha, and the Kappas and the Megas came up to me yelling at me because I said, "You didn't ask."
Yeah. wait. For the people, for the listening,
Yeah.
for the people who are listening, Alpha Phi Alpha is the first Black Greek fraternal organization founded in 1908 at Howard University.
06. No, at Ithaca, New York. Ithaca College.
Okay, Ithaca.
Yeah, in New York. Yeah, small little school as a study group.
Okay.
Yeah, and get together, so forth. So it's they got the secret handshake. All the. I got my Gray Ghost letter sweater. My sweater that we all bought and wore for formal occasions and so forth. But no, that was. But see, the brothers, not just it was a Greek brotherhood. I mean, and no matter what was going on in the world, Kennedy was shot. Martin Luther King had this great speech all during my college. That one of the things that it did was it changed me as far as how I looked at society and people, because I really didn't have any idea. Coming from Fairborn, I didn't hear racism and stuff. But I took a trip south once with my grandparents, and I drove them down through Mississippi, and it was my first stop at a gas station in Birmingham, and there's black and white toilets. Blacks, what? Separate. Now I'm like 18 years old now, and I'm going, what's this about? I was like clueless. So I came out of it with I don't know, some of the guys that I went to school with were like me. They were there on scholarship. They had a worse life than I had. And I said, this has changed me, this experience. I'm so glad this happened. And there's a whole lot more to the story, but I became the AKA sweetheart one year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've got pictures with the girl and everything. Yeah, so sponsored by.
I have to wrap it up now.
Yeah.
Because these interviews, 30, 40 minutes about the time.
They get too long. Let me give some words of wisdom.
Please give us some words of wisdom. Because right now I'm still in shock. You are my brother in so many different ways.
Yeah.
You're my brother from another mother.
Yes, that's it. Exactly. And that's the way you got to look at people. You have to, it's some of the sayings, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it.
Right.
And, all my buddies that had different, more advantages, they're not happy. Even with their, you can just tell they didn't get it. They don't have the it's giving. It's, what goes around comes around. It's pay it forward. Pay it forward, whatever it is.
Okay, final words.
Well,
comments?
see, I have a whole thing just on FBA and how great it was for me in my development. And get involved with judging, get involved with hosting, make sure you got a mentor. I mean, ask questions, have people over. And they say, how do you last 57 years? You got to love what you're doing. You have to love what you're doing. Go to the conventions, go to workshops. I took conducting. I was up at Dr. Robert Reynolds. I went to Michigan a couple summers to take conducting with him. I did not wear my Ohio State shirt at all during that time. But I mean, we would go to the Midwest. Just if you want to learn how to band direct, you got to work at it. It takes several years. One of the hardest things for me was figuring out how to get a superior. Took a couple years, and then you gotta have a good ear. You gotta understand Macbeth's pyramids of sound. All this stuff that I got pages here for you, hours of stuff. Give me a call. So I go to one of the summer conventions. By the way, our state FMEA president, I taught at St. Lucia's High School, Jason Locker.
Okay.
Great saxophone player. I did not know he could sing so well. He goes to UF and changes his major from sax to vocal, and he's amazing. So anyway, I'm at the summer convention, young guy over USF, cross introducing, and we go through the week, and the guest through the week is Dr. Francis Macbeth. Great composer, conductor, all-state clinician. And he says, and this is like a little carrot, now if you stay till the very end, which is usually Saturday afternoon, everybody's wanting to go and a lot of people don't stay, he says, I'm going to give you the secret to band directing. So I'm sitting there in the auditorium the last day, last minute of the convention. He's getting ready to wrap up. And he says, thank you very much. I raise my hand. I say, excuse me, you promised you were going to give us the secret. He starts laughing. I said, you were going to give us a secret to band directing. And I'll leave you all with this. So he turns around and he always has his batons in his sheath behind his head. And he takes his baton out and he says, okay, the secret to band directing is beware of premature acceptance of your work. Yeah, so.
You're never as great as you think you are.
Yeah.
You can always improve. You never stop learning.
Yeah, no. Tony, thanks so much. Thank you. I'm so honored for this legacy opportunity, and now my daughter and my wife can see how crazy their husband and father
their
is.
daughters and their sons,
Yeah.
and great grandkids. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. God bless you, and I can't thank you enough for recommending me for this.
Oh, the honor
I'm
is
getting a
FBA.
tear in my eye.
The honor is all FBA.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you.